not say, because Dave Taylor's going to be on here as well today, follow us on the hashtag DSPSE, join us on Twitter or on LinkedIn to keep up to date with all the different plans, initiatives and events that we might have coming up. So now it is my absolute pleasure to introduce somebody who, you think, oh, I'm going to be like her when I'm grown up. Our keynote speaker is Debbie Forster, MBE. Now, Debbie has an award-winning figure in diversity, tech and education. Debbie is a coach, a portfolio consultant and CEO of Tech Talent Charter. Just a few of the accolades, Debbie, which I'm sure you'll be delighted to hear again. A wise woman, which means a woman in science and engineering, Women of the Year 2016, awarded MBE in 2017 for services to digital technology and tech development, and awarded Women in IT Awards Diversity Leader of the Year 2019, and just one more, Computer Weekly named Debbie the most influential woman in the UK in IT just last year in 2019. I'm delighted to bring you onto the stage, Debbie, and hand over to you for your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And Alison, I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to be when I grow up. So there's no pressure. So it's okay. And the wise woman title just helped me with my teenage daughter, because there was a long time in which she was at that stage. And so saying, you can't say that, I'm a wise woman, didn't work, but I thought it was worth a shot. Hello, everyone. It's been great to hear you. I joined earlier in the session, and what I want to talk about today is going to start with the lens of tech. But in listening and talking and hearing what you've been doing this morning, this is much deeper, much broader than all of that. So if I hope everything is going right, and there's always that added pressure, isn't there, when you are trying to do things in tech to get your right space here. So my name is Debbie Forster. I am the CEO of the Tech Talent Charter. What we do, she says, I'm really sorry, everyone. This is a bit where you try and change your screens, share your screen, and it's not giving me a right screen. There we go. Okay, I can breathe more easily now. So what we do with the Tech Talent Charter is we're an organization. We're not for profit. I'm not trying to sell you anything. We are leading a movement to address inequality in the UK tech sector. Now, what I mean by the tech sector, and that is any organization that needs tech skills. Now, in looking at the earlier surveys that you had, this includes probably just about everyone in the call. We're really trying to drive inclusion and diversity, most importantly, in a practical way. I got sick of going to events, roundtable events, and why there were no women in tech. What I wanted to do was to start talking about what could we do about it today? What could we do back in our offices now? And so we do that, and we also measure what happens. So we bring together everyone who has a vested interest. So yes, it is Microsoft and it is Cisco, but it's Lloyds Bank, Domino's Pizza, Cancer Research UK. It is the LDSP that you're hearing from today. It is SMEs, it's startups, it's anyone who really wants to make that work for them. And I do mean diversity in its fullest sense. Back in 2017, we began this discussion, and we needed to start with a focus, and that was about gender. But if all we're doing is trying to bring in more white middle-class women, that's not diversity. So since last year, we've been really looking at what does this mean in terms of social inclusion, ethnicity, mental health, disability. How can we help get all those great people be into tech? I'm not going to pretend that this is all easy. And I'm certainly not going to pretend that we're not doing this against a backdrop where the world feels really broken. I'm under no illusions as somebody who is trying to run a tiny startup behind the scenes of the pressures everyone feels on this call. But what I want to try and get across today and to think about is inclusion isn't, and it never was, icing on a cake. It was never just a nice thing to do, a good thing to do. It was those things, but what we have known for some time is that it affects the bottom line. It increases profitability. It increases our ability to innovate. It increases our resilience. And my goodness, that's never been more important than under COVID. what we've seen is it's amplified the ways in which we need that innovation, the way we need to be able to respond to disruption, the way in which we need our teams to look and feel like the people we work with in order to get the very best solutions across the board. And so in looking at this, what we know is if you are a company that doesn't represent your customer base, does not include diverse perspectives, and listen, particularly in decision-making seats, you're going to be left behind. And everyone on this call is, what I hear is an energy to not just survive what's going on right now, but to come out and thrive. And I feel real energy about what is coming out in the Southeast. And building inclusion and diversity into the heart of that will enhance what you are trying to do. The business case is there, all right? So if you're still needing to sell this internally, there's some easy stats that you can look. Depending on who you look at, McKinsey says anywhere from 15 to 35%, you will get better financial returns. 83% from Deloitte studies say that this is going to help you in terms of thinking and innovation. And this is really important because of what I heard in earlier things about churn within your workforce, not just the ability to attract great talent, but the ability to retain them is going to come. 54% of women, but listen, 45% of men are looking for those companies that get diversity right, that get inclusion right. And that's what I want to start to talk about today. Look, a lot of companies about 18 months ago started waking up, and that's great. But I saw a lot of them then flip into what I would call that diversity takeaway window panic. All right, you'd get those companies that said, "Okay, we've got to get a diverse team. So please, can I have 2 women, one Black person, 3 disabled, and a neurodiverse in an order of chips to go?" And no surprises. What we found for those companies is they didn't find those people, or if they did, even worse, those people burned through the company very quickly. What I've seen over the last 3 years are the companies who get it right and really feel the difference internally. And it's something you can begin starting today. This doesn't take big budget. This doesn't take huge consultants coming in and doing something. Is first of all, flip the conversation. Make yourself, help your company realize that this is starting with inclusion, which results in great diversity. We've got to move the conversation forward to really focus on building genuinely inclusive cultures. And we have the stats on that as well. Accenture study recently showed that those who get the culture right actually get a multiplier effect on all those other great stats that I said on diversity. Okay, that sounds great. Super Debbie, how do I do it? First of all, we've got to change the conversation and listen. I started saying this last year. This year, a whole lot more people are woke to the piece. That is, we cannot just be talking about gender. We need to understand as companies, how are we inclusive to everyone who might come to us? And this is about their socioeconomic background. This is about ethnicity, disability, mental health. This is not just bringing a lot of white middle-class women into the workplace. Now, to do this, the important thing is we've got to win everybody to the Y. This isn't a zero-sum game. This is not a matter of white middle-class man bad, everyone else good. This is not someone coming to take the job. There are lots of ways of phrasing that conversation, but 2 ways I'd say is this. A year and a half ago, I had a serious injury, surgery that meant I spent the better part of 2019 in a wheelchair, crutches, and a knee scooter. If you've not seen that, Google it. It's a bundle of laughs. It opened my mind not just to what it meant for as a woman, but to think about disability. And what I saw happen was every day, all day, any meeting, any event, no matter how great it was, 20% of my brain was always trying to think, how do I get out that door? How do I get down those stairs? How am I going to make it across town? Where's the loo? Will I be able to use that? Look, if I am LGBTQ in a homophobic office, 20% of my time is spent thinking, do I use the right pronouns? Am I looking straight enough? What did I say when I talked about my partner? If I am a parent in a non-friendly atmosphere for families, 20% of my brain always running those logistics, trying to figure out, in creating a great workforce, wouldn't it be amazing if all of our team could use all of their brains to be really great at their job? Equally, what I often say to people in the room, okay, you might be a white middle class man, you might be a person of privilege, but if you think you don't need inclusion, what I'd remind you is this: so long as you are never going to get older, be injured, have a serious illness, if you are never going to have a family or need to look after children or parents or any other family member, if you are never going to have mental health issues or someone you love with mental health issues, if none of those things are ever going to happen in your life, then you don't need inclusion. When you start winning people, our middle managers, our senior managers, our people on the shop floor, to that why, when we move it to see how we get and it benefits the individual, and where we're willing to start having those tough conversations, remember, policies aren't enough. We start building that really inclusive culture. Look, some of you on this call, I recognize some names on the call and some companies. You're already on the journey on some of these things, but there is always more. Anyone who joins the Tech Talent Charter isn't joining because they've crossed the finish line and they'd like their trophy. Thank you very much. These are companies on the journey. And so I have companies, and I'd say myself, in the last year, I'm having to remind myself to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I've had to learn how to talk about race and how to listen in that respect. I've had to sit down to understand what it means and where the barriers and how can I help pull them down for disability. Now, I would say to those of us who are underrepresented people in the group, we need to create safe spaces within our office, within our Zoom calls, for people to ask questions, to be themselves, to get it wrong, to be willing to get it wrong, and to be able to fix it. It is that inclusive space for all. And it is also moving that conversation on. Remember, I said it's not white middle class man bad, everyone else good. We need to open doors to help people understand how they can be allies, how they can support. We need our senior people to understand how they can be champions to drive the diversity for all. Okay, so let's pretend you're on that journey on building a more inclusive culture. It's tough. The economy's tough. I was reading a lot about what you were saying in the questions and the challenges up against. Let me talk to you about some of the things that I'm hearing from our 500 signatories who are telling us how they're using inclusion and diversity to drive and move things for them. We've been saying for 3 years to companies, start building in flexible remote working as business as usual. Start, and COVID suddenly made those people, it didn't make it easy, but it put them ahead of the game. What I'd say to all of you as you start thinking and planning for that new normal, how do we keep that flexibility in? How do we keep remote working as a possibility? It does bring down some of our costs. It allows us to reach and access people in different ways, and it allows us to reach into people that we wouldn't be able to do before. Really important thing, because it works well on both sides. Are you working to create more meaningful part-time roles? Now, this is a game changer, both for, I'll show you some stats in terms of who you can access, but actually think about as companies. I might not be able to afford one full-time person to come in and do a role. But if I look at how could I make it flexible, remote, part-time, I'm going to dip into, and I say that as the Tech Talent Charter. I now have 4 people working for me. All 4 of them are working part-time, remote, flex working. Listen, I'm getting talent I could never normally afford, and they love working with me because they can fit that into their lives. They can live anywhere in the UK. They can fit it around study, childcare, mental health. I get great team members because I've looked for how do I make part-time work. It also means I can afford it. And I'm delighted to hear about how many of you are thinking about apprenticeships, how many of you are thinking about those retraining programs. The thing I throw down to you to think about is this. Apprenticeships are ready to be thrown out of the box and reinvented. How can we, and I'm hearing a lot of companies, a lot of consortiums really trying to rethink, what could apprenticeship mean? Could an apprenticeship be for a 40-year-old retrainer? Could an apprenticeship be for part-time internal retraining rather than make someone on my team redundant? Can I look for ways of creating internal retraining programs? And also, how can I work together? I'm delighted to see it's why I love working in the Southeast with this local digital skills partnership. All of you are looking at how can we band together. I'm a tiny startup, but if I'm working part of a larger group, a consortium to look at retraining, to rethink how we do apprenticeships, I can give great talent. And if you need the stats to think about in the future as you look ahead, when we talk about that flexible, that part-time working, this is not just for mummies anymore. Look at the stats, 84% of men as well as 91%. And these are pre-COVID stats. Look at the younger age groups. Look at those who have mental health issues, who want that side studying. If we want great talent, if we want to rethink how we shape our workforce to survive in COVID, then we need to be thinking about flexible and part-time working. And think about that training piece. We know already that 70% of the women surveyed from across the UK are interested in getting into tech. 70% of the women suggest they're in your company now. If you're looking at people within your company, and I hear from your stats, you can't get those digital skills, where and how can you tap into existing retraining schemes to get them in? But do think about these ideas of the time requirements. And think about flexible. The stats that have come out since, we're waiting to see bottom lines on this, is how much of the workforce now, having worked under lockdown, now having experienced remote working, we're hearing from more and more people, and this is key for all of us, people who are willing to take job hits, pay cuts, in order to maintain this in the new normal. So if you're really trying to think about those things, it is about the collaboration. It is about rethinking how we do it. But, and I'm delighted to think I am talking to the converted here, the last thing I would say to you, it is about getting out of our silos. It is not just looking internally, how do we do it? It is thinking across your sector, across sectors in your region. This doesn't happen by accident, but it is about leaning in at events like this and meetings, etc., that go on. It is about connecting. It's about sharing the data. It's about sharing not just what works and what's shiny, it's about what doesn't. And that's really where I'll leave you with. You know, I wouldn't be saying if I didn't want to have you join. We have over 500 signatories from across the whole of UK. It is free. If you need tech talent, if you're wanting to know how do I set up a retraining program, a returners program, we offer free resources, free membership. We work with the LDSP to try and help you see how you move your business forward. It is the toughest time I've known in my working life, but it's also a time in which I'm seeing great innovation and us rethinking what work means. And I do believe if we keep on this journey, if we do what's hard, we could reshape what productivity, what competitiveness, what success looks like in the UK. We can create a new normal, but we can't do it unless we absolutely put inclusion at the heart of it in a real and practical way. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Debbie. I've made notes myself already, and I think that absolutely echoes and supports that strong collective approach. It's completely to do with digital diversity and inclusion as well. So thank you ever so much for your time today, Debbie. It's been fascinating hearing from you. I'm really pleased that actually this leads on so nicely to one of our working groups, Digital Inclusion, which is going to be presented to us by George Anibaba. So George, over to you. Thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Is it afternoon? It's lunchtime. My name is George Anibaba. That's like Alibaba, but with an N. I just thought I'd get that one out of the way after years of trauma, people getting my name wrong and rhyming it with Alibaba. I work for Academic Health Science Network. We are one of 15 in the country. We were set up in 2013, really, to support the spread and the adoption of innovation. So the topic of digital inclusion is actually one that resonates with us as an organization and with me personally. In my spare time, as well as working for the AHSN, one of the things I do in the community is I support the running of an outreach Sunday school. And obviously with COVID hitting, the impact was felt, and the consequences of that were we had to move all of our lessons online. What transpired was there were children who were not able to access the lessons purely because some of their families had to make those tough decisions between paying the bills, or some pressing bills and more important bills, versus getting some more data, or potentially buying another device if there weren't enough devices at home. Another challenge perhaps might be, buying more data versus actually putting food on a table and getting a meal. So this is something that hit me personally, and actually made digital inclusion or exclusion more than just a buzzword, but an inconvenient fact and a reality. So COVID, it goes without saying, has changed a lot of things. I'm just going to attempt to share my screen now. Here we go. So COVID has changed everything about the way we live, the way we work, the way we trade, sell, and consume. Universities and schools have had to start teaching online. GPs are doing online consultations. Sunday schools are teaching online and having their extracurricular activities as well online. Musicians are having to perform remotely, and we heard earlier about that. And high street businesses have become digital to basically remain viable. And parents are bringing their families to work, as I had to earlier. But that's a reality for many of us. And getting online and having basic digital skills are now as important in getting a job as English and maths. And given a new reality where many of us have been asked to work from home, if you can't get online, you won't be able to survive. And yeah, according to research by the Good Things Foundation, 9 million people who struggle to use the internet independently have been locked out of this digital economy and are being left behind. So this is a very complex societal issue. And not completely understood. I mean, it's dynamic, and I'm borrowing some quotes and words here from some of my colleagues, namely our medical director and managing director, who are very passionate about this at the AHSN. It's not static and requires listening and partnership working in order for the right problems to be addressed, and in the right way and at the right time, and also to affect the right people. So many of you will know the Essential Digital Skills Framework defines the core skills needed to safely benefit from participating and contributing to the digital world today and in the future. So this affects a number of things, but I'll just reel off the 5 categories. They are communicating, handling information and content, transacting, problem solving, and being able to stay safe and legal online. So this is obviously affecting employment, it's affecting education. Some children perhaps may not be able to access online learning just because they don't have a device. Some children perhaps who benefit mentally, morally, spiritually from other groups that they attend, as I mentioned earlier, might not be able to realize that benefit just because they don't have access to connectivity or the right technology to do so. Communication, again, is a big issue, particularly for those who might feel socially isolated, and access to essential services like the NHS that I mentioned earlier. And I've got communication there twice, so ignore that. And time and efficiency savings as well, because it goes without saying that, being able to be digital actually is time saving and improves productivity. So another thing to mention, just to come away from this and talk about, what this means in a global context. In 2015, the UK signed up along with the other countries in the UN to help achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, which include very, very small ambitions, such as ending poverty, protecting the planet, and improving lives and prospects of everyone everywhere. So, easy stuff. In the global context, the UK, sadly, still lags behind many other G20 countries in terms of inequality. And we heard about that just earlier. For example, access to fast broadband and digital skills of citizens and staff and our wider workforce. Though one of the more prosperous regions in the country, it is true of the Southeast and the region that we cover. There's a huge risk of people being left out in an increasingly digital age. So the digital divide between the haves and the have-nots is something that is very real. And just for some context, just to think about what that means in terms of numbers and impact regionally. So 19% of the Southeast population, that's 800,000 odd people, do not possess essential digital skills for life. And this is from the Lloyd's Consumer Digital Index. It is estimated that 7% will still lack these skills in 2030. Around 14% of JCP claimants are digitally disengaged, and 11% of people in Essex and Kent are digitally disengaged. And we've got stat upon stat upon stat upon stat to basically highlight that this is a big issue, and it's growing. And COVID, of course, has shone a light on it and highlighted that, if this is not addressed, the problem is bound to get worse. So one of the things that still prevails because of COVID is the spirit of activism and the spirit of mucking in, if we want to use plain English, and getting people really to come together and address these challenges. And we've heard about representation across the DSP, really putting the P in partnerships across a variety of sectors. So as part of the Preventing Digital Exclusion working group, which is part of the DSP, and trying to tackle the Southeast digital divide, we have a working manifesto, which means it can change. But as it stands, is for us to fight injustice and inequality, themes that resonate and have been repeated by other speakers in the Southeast region, by ensuring all of our citizens have the access and the skills required to realize the benefits of digital technologies. Again, no mean feat, right? And this is also to make universal internet connectivity a priority. Now, this resonates, again, with the organization that I work for, KSSA-HSN, which is a strapline of transforming lives through innovation, and particularly the lives of those with most need who, for whatever reason, socioeconomic or other issues, are unable to get access to basic or even more groundbreaking solutions that are potentially life-changing. So this is a real issue, and we want to make sure that we bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots. So in the spirit of mucking in the spirit of partnerships, in the spirit of understanding that to fix a problem, you need to bring people with skin in the game together, the working groups were set up with a few subgroups. So I co-chair the Access for All subgroup, and we have a meager ambition of trying to achieve 0% digital exclusion. There are a few other working groups as well, one for charities to support charities supporting vulnerable residents, and for employment, improving training, education, careers advice and information for the unemployed across the Southeast. Now, our vision within the Access for All group is to have a universal minimum digital skills level. And I'll be really interested in connecting with people across the patch and some of our other speakers who have similar ambitions and are working in a number of spaces trying to address this. Now, this is a massive problem. This is a massive challenge and a massive opportunity equally. And, it's back to that age-old question: how do you try to eat an elephant, one chunk at a time? And we've identified a few themes to help us consolidate our thinking and our efforts and target them in the right way. One of the themes is sharing stories. and understanding what the lived experiences of people who are experiencing digital exclusion for whatever reason, and ensuring that we've got the right representation, but also identifying and accessing funding opportunities, which we'll hear some more about later, and leveraging those as well. So our working group, again, in the spirit of mucking in, we've got people from across the patch and across various sectors with skin in the game. We've got Satish Siva Subramanian, who's co-chair and works at the Howard School in Gillingham and is an ICT and computing coordinator. So shout out to Satish if you're here. He most probably hasn't been able to join because, as Alison mentioned, he's got a day job, so he's actually working at school. Vicky, National Head of EdTech and Digital Skills for the Education and Training Foundation. David Barker, Internet and Social Entrepreneur, Tech Centre. Sam Rhodes, who's Employability and Skills Officer at East Sussex. And our working group leads who kind of provide some oversight, Rona Driva from libraries from East Sussex County Council, who's a library strategy and performance manager, and Will Pickford as well, who's the vice principal at Thurrock Adult Community College. So together, we launched in August. We had our first meeting, and literally we tried to work out what the scope of our work would be. And we tried to work on a few principles and a few whys, actually. So issues, so who's affected and how do we address and overcome true needs? So we'd need to understand the landscape, engage with partners across the region to understand what that looks like in order for us to respond in the right way. Information, there's so many resources, you know, we've been swamped with information, particularly during this time. Some helpful, some less helpful. But again, because of our links and our connections, there are resources and information for us to be able to use and for us also to cascade to policymakers and raise some more awareness about these efforts. Impact as well. This is the so what, essentially. So everything we're doing, what impact is it going to have in terms of giving people access to hardware and the internet? So again, a question we asked was, how will we know we've made a difference in any kind of improvement activity? You want to know, how will we know if we've made a difference once we've put these interventions in place and prior and before that understood the scale and the size of the problem? So increasing awareness of digital skills. We've got a few here. I think I'm running out of time slightly, so I'm going to try and speed on. So we've got a few outcomes and measurable outputs that we're looking at, but this is a work in progress. And also in terms of making a difference in the spirit of activism, there are a few things that are underway. So the Coursera partnership. So Coursera is a massive open online course provider. They're working now to curate courses and offering access to their online courses at no cost. For those who are furloughed, unemployed, it's free to sign up until the end of October. So please do cascade across your networks. And these courses must be completed by December 2020. And you can access the portal via CELEP's DSP website. And a few courses on offer there. So a real massive opportunity. Another thing is the Good Things Foundation opportunity, and Good Things Foundation are UK-based registered charity. And basically they exist to make sure that people benefit from the offers of digital technology. So the DSP have made a donation of £10,000 to the Good Things Foundation and secured laptops, tablets and connectivity for beneficiaries in these areas. Through our connections, we're able to identify some of these beneficiaries.
George, thank you. I'm just going to say, I know we're all eating elephants today, aren't we? But can we have a couple more minutes of your presentation so that we can welcome the next session as well? Thank you, George. No worries, thank you. In terms of making a difference, another partnership is with FutureFit AI. So FutureFit AI are an organization that have a AI-powered intelligence platform for the future of work. So the partnership with FutureFit AI coming soon will allow 100 residents to get free access to their platform over the next couple of months with a number of benefits in terms of career progression. And coming soon, and I won't say too much about this as you'll hear about it later, online tools, resources and learning opportunities through the Digital Skills Prospectus, CELEP Skills Fund as well to follow. There's also an online platform called HexiTime, which allows skills exchange between improvers in their health and social care system.
regardless of their banding or the organization they represent, to do that. And recently we launched a campaign around a community of opportunity to support BAME staff. Mentioned earlier, I know Jim mentioned it in the chat, massive news that we've got a new diversity and inclusion lead for the DSP. So congratulations to Kit, who's taking this role on. And finally, just some questions, or really an ask from everyone here attending and listening. You know, do we have any blind spots? I've kind of tried to rule through a few slides and a few points, but would encourage you to raise awareness of the DSP's function, the Access for All group, and what we're doing, share resources, insights, and ideas, and help contribute to worthy causes such as that, the Devices.Now initiative through the Good Things Foundation. And of course, if there's anything that we need to be signposted to, or any resources or organizations that are working in this space, would be really keen and pleased to connect with them. More information and resources there. Don't want to get my wrist slapped. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks so much, George. One of the benefits of virtual, we can't kick you under the table or slap your wrist. Really appreciate your time though, George. Thank you so much for being with us today. As I said, I think we're all eating an elephant. It's a very ambitious sort of project, but everyone can make a difference and everyone can make a change. George has got great energy there and gave us some wonderful insights onto what that inclusion group can do to really make a difference. Now we've got somebody else with a lot of energy. Life rumbles on. I'm very sorry to say Jane has got to go and collect a poorly son, but we do have the benefit of David Taylor, Managing Director of DNA6, who's leading the Digital Skills Partnership Working Group on Small and Medium Enterprises. So welcome, David. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Alison. I'm really sorry, everyone, that Jane hasn't been able to attend, but I shall soldier on regardless and hopefully give you a useful presentation. So, just going to make sure that is, again, a second, make sure that my screen is being shared. Right.
Hi, David. Screen sharing. You just need to press Start Show so we can see it in full screen.
Hang on a second. Is that fine, Louise?
We're still just seeing your edit view, so you just need to go down to slideshow and then start the show there.
Hang on a second. Can you see that?
Yes, wonderful. Over to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so I am the co-chair of the SME working group. I have a background in digital skills training. I've spent 10 years working in and around social media. I've written books, I've trained, and I've also been part of the Federation of Small Businesses senior management team. Jane, her business is all about helping mums be successful in their careers. And together, what we've done is we've worked with an amazing group of people from around the Southeast who've helped us over the last few months to devise a working strategy for how we're going to help the SMEs across the Southeast. So we had three main aims. Firstly, we needed to understand the scale of the challenge and diagnose what are the actual digital skills challenges being faced by businesses across the Southeast. Then it's about providing training and support, and how could we do that? And then, of course, as we've heard from George, it's about being inclusive and diverse. And the wonderful thing about digital is actually it offers a lot of opportunities. So we've also heard today that there are a lot of businesses across the Southeast. So the counts from last year, 173,315 businesses. Now, if you look, you will notice that 156,000 of them are what we call micro businesses. And so we need to be very, very aware of how we're going to help those businesses, particularly as we are going to go into potentially quite a difficult time. But of course, the Digital Skills Partnership is all about working with all sizes of businesses, whether they are very large or very, very small. And that's what we've tried to bear in mind. As I say, though, there are 4 key challenges which are now facing businesses, not only in the Southeast, but also right across the UK and, in fact, the world. So we've got Brexit. We don't know what Brexit's going to look like. We don't know whether we got a deal or no deal. It may be a fantastic opportunity. It may be a massive problem. We just don't know. There's lots and lots of don't knows. We've also got climate change. So climate change now is a significant factor, just the same as equality and diversity is absolutely critical to the workings of most organizations. I believe that climate change is also another critical part of evaluating how you run a business. We've also got artificial intelligence. Now, AI is going to replace millions and millions of jobs. It's also going to facilitate lots of practices which were hitherto not being able to be done. And of course, we are still dealing with the after effects of COVID. But again, we've seen that there are lots of businesses who've risen to the challenge and they've actually earned more money over lockdown than they did pre-lockdown. So we know that with all of these 4, there are significant challenges, there are significant opportunities. What this means is that there is no more business as usual. Any business who says, yes, we're fine, we know who our customers are, we don't need to do that digital stuff, we are absolutely fine, that's not going to be any use anymore, because we are living in, and if you want to look it up afterwards, what's called a VUCA world, which is it's violent, it's unpredictable, it's chaotic, and it's anarchic. We don't know what tomorrow's going to look like, let alone next year and those afterwards. But what we need to do is we need to be agile and we need to act now. And that's why I am so passionate about what this Digital Skills Partnership can do. What we do know, again, it's been brought up earlier, that the Lloyd's Digital Business Index identified last year, and this is pre-COVID, that those businesses who were doing digital were forging ahead and doing really well. Those who were not were falling further and further and further behind. And in many ways, I'd like to replace the word digital skills with business skills. We live in a digital world. Therefore, the skills you need to run a business in today's world are digital, and they are business skills. As you can see from this slide, there are so many different parts of businesses which are now impacted or in fact entirely digital based. So with all this in mind, this is what the working group are struggling with and dealing with and thinking, okay, we've got these hundreds of thousands of businesses, we've got these amazing problems, we've got challenges, we've got opportunities, we've got people who don't have digital skills, we've got problems with all sorts of knowledge base. What is the solution then? So, and I will happily post this into the chat after the presentation, because it is quite small and I recognize that we're all watching this on a screen instead of a nice screen in a building. What we've tried to do is try to replicate the very, very best of what is happening in and around the Southeast at the moment. I should add at this stage that I've been very fortunate to work with some fantastic growth hubs. I've worked with Rich Byrne at the Dorset Growth Hub. And Rich, hi, I know you're on the call today. I've worked with Let's Do Business. I've worked with Coaster Capital. And I certainly understand the nature of what is happening and the challenges being faced by a number of different organizations at the moment. So what I've tried to do here, what we tried to do as a working group, is come up with a system which works. Now, this looks quite complicated, but effectively, what we're talking about is 3 things. So we're looking at, number 1, we need to have people on the ground what we would refer to as digital development officers. These are, if you like, very similar to what BusinessLink was doing a number of years ago. And the digital outreach officer, their job would be to interface with organizations right across a local authority. They would be very visible. They would be engaging with businesses. They would be not online necessarily, because we recognize that a huge amount, in fact, of businesses aren't online at all. Therefore, they're not going to find advice online. So we would have digital development officers. We would also be looking at trying to bring on digital development trainees. So these people would also be facilitating the knowledge around the essential digital skills framework, as we can see here. So the digital development trainees could be drawn either from those on the Kickstart program or those who are doing work placement at colleges. So what it does, it brings the colleges in. And what I've said earlier in the chat is that there is a generation who have innate digital skills. So this is the Digital Skills Partnership. There are thousands of youngsters who have amazing digital skills, but no one ever talks to them. They always think, oh, they're stupid snowflakes, and all they do is spend their time on Snapchat and TikTok. But they understand the world that we're in, but they don't necessarily understand the world of business. Therefore, having digital development trainees and officers doing outreach at the local level will help signpost. Then we're also looking at having some form of diagnostic tool, and the diagnostic tool will help understand exactly where the strengths and the weaknesses lie for those businesses. And then the third element is providing, if we go back, is providing training. So we need to be looking at the amount of training available. I've been very, very fortunate within the working group. There's some fantastic training organizations and providers, but we need to be looking at the big tech companies. So the Amazon Small Business Accelerator, you've got Facebook Blueprint, Microsoft, Google Garage, which has also been mentioned earlier. We also know that BT are doing various enterprises. So there's a huge amount of information there. The problem is that no one seems to be talking to one another. And there are patches of absolute brilliance, and then there are areas where not much is happening. What we really want to do, and this is again why I think the Digital Skills Partnership is such a valuable organization, is bringing everyone together. If we get everyone talking and everyone working together and taking the best bits of the system that we've got at present, then what we will be able to do is be able to help as many of those 173,315 businesses that we can possibly do. So we're looking at 4 proposed pilots. Why these areas? Because that we believe that there is the infrastructure there to be able to support it. So we're looking at Epping and Basildon within Essex. We're looking at Eastbourne in East Sussex, and we're looking at Canterbury in Kent. And those pilots will be looking at the idea about, could we have outreach, digital outreach people within the local community working in partnership with the Skills Hub, which has been created by the DSP, and then also aligning with some of the training providers that we've got. So we're looking at running these 4 proposed pilots. But what do we need? What do we need? Well, we need people who are going to be digital development officers. Now, these people, I believe, could be drawn from any number of backgrounds. They could be business coaches. They could be people who are in tech or in social media. They could be people who are already working in local authorities. They could be seconded from larger organizations who want to do some form of outreach work within the community. They could be people who are retired. They could also be volunteers. But I believe that what we need is a veritable army of people who really want to help all the businesses and the organizations right across the region. But we'd also be looking at private sector and tech sponsorship. Again, the big tech companies are very, very keen to try and get through to businesses. But there's a disconnect. A lot of those businesses don't know what for example, Facebook Blueprint offer free courses on how to use Facebook and Instagram. Ask your average business in the high street, do you know about Facebook Blueprint? No idea at all. So there's a real disconnect. So if we could bring the big tech companies in, and we could also bring some smaller companies in who are interested in maybe sponsoring the whole process, that would be brilliant. Also, as Alison quite rightly pointed out, this is a digital world and it's about digital communication. We have a hashtag DSPSE. We have Southeast LEP on Twitter. We have on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all of those. So the more the people on this conference can support it, the more they can promote it, the more people are going to be made aware. And the beauty of that is it's not going to cost anything. Similarly, we've also got a lot of positive case studies. What we'd really want is positive case studies. What we don't necessarily want to hear is loads of businesses saying, oh, it's so difficult now and COVID's wrecked us. Clearly, we know it has impacted negatively on lots and lots of businesses. But equally, what we want to hear is, let's say you had two plumbers in Chelmsford. And one plumber has sort of said, oh, I can't be doing with this digital rubbish and I don't see the point of it. And I'm just a plumber at the end of the day. What we want to hear is another plumber who's got a really good content management system. They understand social media. They're really good at getting out there and promoting their brand. And what that second plumber has done is massively changed their business. So they can go to plumber number one and say, well, I'm the same as you. I've gone digital. So look at what the result has been. So there will be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of really positive case studies. What we want to do is start building those positive case studies. But also we need enthusiasm from all of you. We know it's difficult. We know that money is really tight. We know that local authorities don't have any bandwidth and are really worried about finances themselves. We are, as I re-emphasize, entering a very, very difficult time. We don't know what the future is going to look like. And therefore, the more that the DSP can bring a myriad of organizations together, of passionate people together, and the more enthusiasm we can raise, the more likely we are to be able to help those thousands and thousands of businesses. I reiterate, we live in a digital world, and therefore we need to make sure that the UK and certainly the Southeast is ready to be able to deal in that digital world and not just retreat and say it's too difficult. But that's where the DSP comes in. And that's why I'm really proud to have been a co-chair of the SME working group. The next steps are that we hope that the pilots go ahead, and then the strategy could be adopted, and then we could move. But we need to move fast. We don't have time. A lot of those businesses could go to the wall if they don't adapt to this changing circumstances. So we have to act now. But that's why I'm really, really pleased that we've got this conference today. And that's why I'm very happy to answer any questions. I'll post those two infographics into the chat, but I believe that's me for now. I shall hand back over to Alison.
Thank you so much, David, for an energetic presentation, highlighting some of those issues that we all know we've really got to work on and tackle, and some of that's already happening, which is fantastic. I think now we are able to move into our panel session. We will be joined by a couple of others. So David, if you would like to stay there, can I welcome to our stage, with the help of Louise in the background, Kit from Mindweaver, and back on stage, George as well, please. It'd be lovely to have you, as well as the man behind it all, Jim Wilkinson, our Digital Skills Partnership Coordinator and Chief. Hi, Kit, lovely to see you.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. I'm sure Jim will be here in a minute. David, you'll be pleased to know that you've generated a fair amount of questions on the Q&A, so have you, George, as well. And Kit, there's some nice comments about your presentation at the South East LEPS AGM that took place last week, I think, as well. So, cheers,
sorry,
Jim, welcome.
David, if you could just stop sharing your screen, please, David, thanks.
So I'm conscious here, we're sort of running a little over time. So if I could ask panelists to sort of answer briefly, as you can. So I'm really sorry, but the first one really is for Kit. And Kit, it's been mentioned in the comments about your presentation to the CELEP AGM last week, how well that went down, how challenging the message was. I just wondered, can you summarise that for us in the space of seconds, and what we might be doing as a digital skills partnership to move forward?
Yeah, okay, so 15 minutes and 30 seconds, I'll do my best. So we were really talking about the importance to move the agenda forward, I guess, similar to what Debbie was saying, broader than just gender, although gender is incredibly important, and how as a DSP, as a LEP, we need to focus on how we support the development of new skills in one instance, but also that we make sure that those skills are targeted at certain groups that are typically left out, they're underrepresented, they're underemployed, that we bring some of the more difficult aspects of this diversity conversation that we're having to the forefront. So that's equality, inclusion, diversity, yes, but also anti-racism. And we know that the LEP is a majority white region, of course, but there still needs to be some focus on those minority groups, and that is ethnicity, but there's also LGBTQ, that's also base on mobility, that's also neurodiversity. There's a whole range that we need to focus on, and that we have to think. I think, you know, I guess what I would hope was a key takeaway is that the diversity, equality, inclusion and anti-racism piece has to now be really connected with our digital skill strategies, as well as, and I'll finish, Jim, because you're doing a good hurry up Kit nod, as well as looking at how we piece those bits of the strategy together and focus on the connected issues that then affect some of the smaller businesses in the region. And supporting them to make sure that diversity, equality, inclusion and anti-racism can stay on their agendas as well as they fight for survival.
Excellent. Thanks ever so much. Sorry. It feels terrible to rush that through. I'm really sorry. David, the next one's for you. The question is about, you've talked about pilots. It's probably important to say where we're at in terms of those pilots, because it's not that we're ready to go to today, for example, but just to establish where we are in those areas you're talking about. And then the question is, how would another council best approach the ESP to express an interest in joining those pilots?
So we presented the strategy, and it was felt, as is normally the case, that there needs to be pilots which actually are proof of concept. So there's 4 areas were identified simply because they had potentially the right fertile territory to make them work. We're finding, obviously, that time and money are 2 key issues here, and therefore hoping to make those pilots work. However, that's not to say that if there are other areas who are keen to put forward a pilot, that could not work, and we'd be very, very open. I think what we're looking for is a local authority which is really, really outgoing, has got a little bit of bandwidth, maybe an economic development team who are happy to take on a slightly extra role. There's a really good relationship with a local college or maybe university, and there are a number of organizations on the ground who they could collaborate with. So if the circumstances are right, absolutely, we're keen. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. What we need is 1 or 2 pilots which have been successful, but we recognize that getting the pilots off the ground might be a little bit more tricky than it would have been certainly pre-COVID. Yeah.
And you know, on that note, people are always welcome to contact me as the coordinator, and I can filter on to the relevant leads for each of the groups. Thanks, David. George, one about the ambitious target you've set as a group. And I suppose, you know, what are the 3 things that could make that target
It's very easy, isn't it? I think, again, we talked about engaging with people who have skin in the game and have got mutual interest, mutual energy and passion in achieving some of these goals. So rather than working in a silo, appreciating and there are various organizations and even partnerships and systems. So working in the NHS, will be familiar with, some of us will be familiar with the integration agenda. There are local authorities working with their local NHS organizations trying to tackle these very issues, and will have discrete projects trying to address them. So in order to accelerate and expedite some of this work, or even make sure that it reaches the right people, that we're aware of some of these efforts that are happening across the patch and linking in with people and organizations and teams that are basically trying to tackle the same issue. So yeah, having another layer of DSPism to add to what's already happening. So that those are not three things. I think that's the one key thing that needs to happen. But also making sure that we're raising awareness of some of the opportunities and offers that come about when we're scanning the horizon for funding opportunities in particular, putting bids in that don't involve one organization, but a multiplicity of organizations that, again, equally have a mutual interest and passion in addressing the issues. So I think it's all about collaboration. I would say that because I work for a network, but it is absolutely all about collaboration and also managing expectations. This is not something that will be solved overnight, even though digital was pretty much adopted in most places seemingly overnight. I think it's going to require patience and just making sure we fail fast as well. So if there's something that doesn't work, learn from it and move on.
Great, thanks ever so much. Question before we move on, Alison, to you. Just can you summarise what the FSB is doing in and around this kind of digital?
Absolutely. So, of course, it's our job to talk to government and highlight issues like this, like fundamental ones, like we need solid access to the internet so that we can all do this sort of thing anyway. That's a basic requirement. So we'll be doing lots of that lobbying behind the scenes. But then also, again, like George and others, that partnership work and a lot of signposting. As we can see right now, there's already a lot available at the moment, and that's actually part of the Digital Skills Partnership, is to draw together, drive activity, share that best practice. And actually FSB does a lot of that. So we will absolutely let members and non-members know about schemes already running, such as Google Digital Garage, Facebook, hashtag #SheMeansBusiness, loads of free training available online there already. Make It Click, that's another free online training session for the small business owner. And some more local ones as well. Or actually, this is a national one. There's a new leadership program that's being run by the Small Business Charter. So initiatives such as this, we would say, this is brilliant, go and use it. Or Future Forward, run by Locate in Kent, some bespoke one-to-one training and development and advice for small business owners. That's just a few of the ones that, off the top of my head, I know that are available at the moment. Alongside FSB offering the regular benefits, heaps of webinars, absolutely all of that. But there's a lot available that will help signpost, as with the Digital Skills Partnership.
Thanks ever so much. And I'm really sorry to sort of cut this section short, but the offer goes to everyone in the room that each of these people around the virtual stage are accessible, are happy to connect, and through me I can set up those kind of connections. So thanks ever so much to every single one of you today. Just moving on, I'm going to need to check with Louise Stokes whether I can bring in our next speaker at this point, or do we need to take a short break to enable us to do that?
We could see if Ben is here ready. If Ben, you want to turn on your camera and microphone, we can see if you're here and ready. Otherwise, we'll take a short break in the green room and check.
So,
hello, can you hear me?
And there's Ben. So thank you ever so much, Louise. Thanks to Kit. I'm going to. Ben is from the Department for Education. He's going to talk to us today about apprenticeships and T-level updates. So over to you, Ben.
Thanks, Jim. Just going to go to try and load up my window here. So I'm just trying to get the slides here.
To the mix. without that short break beforehand. So no worries. Take your time.
Can't see the. It's not coming up in the application window, so I'm going to share the entire screen. I think that's the only option I've got at the moment. So
Okay.
I'll do that, and I'll
There we go. We can see your screen now, Ben.
Okay, great. Hi everyone, welcome to our presentation on apprenticeships and the wider skills offer. My name is Ben, and today I'm joined by my colleagues Karen and Subash. Hopefully they're part of this as well and can be heard.
Hi Ben, I'm here.
Hi Karen, thanks. The ESFA's current focus is on the complete skills offer, which includes apprenticeships, T-levels and traineeships. We're here today to let you know more about how employers and intermediaries can move from the awareness of the new incentives to creating and implementing new programs. So my colleagues and I will be taking you through the skills opportunities shown here, as well as providing an update on the redundancy support service. Following that, we have allowed some time at the end for questions. So please use the Q&A facility provided, and we'll do our best to answer some of the questions there if we've got the time. I'm aware that we're slightly behind now, so we might be able to claw a bit of that time back. Anything that we don't get round to answering, then hopefully those questions will be collated by our hosts, and we'll endeavour to send out responses at a later date. As you'll be aware, apprenticeships are the flagship offering from the government and the end goal within our plan for jobs. What this slide shows is that all roads lead to apprenticeships. For traineeships, T-levels and Kickstart, the desired progression for each of these programs is an apprenticeship. The potential apprenticeships will, of course, be at different levels. For a traineeship and Kickstart program, the start of an apprenticeship journey is likely to be at around level 2 or level 3. For T-levels, it could be a higher level apprenticeship. But an apprenticeship is a credible, exciting and achievable route from all three of these pipeline programs. The Chancellor recently announced that until the end of January 2021, employers can benefit from a new incentive payment of £2,000 for apprentices under 25 and £1,500 for those 25 and over. The employer can choose how to spend this money to support their apprentices. It could include things like startup costs, uniforms, equipment or travel. The incentive can also be used to contribute towards meeting the cost of an apprentice's wage. This funding is in addition to the existing £1,000 incentive that's available when offering an apprenticeship to those aged 16 to 18 and up to 24 years for those with an education, health and care plan. The key here is that the Chancellor sees apprenticeships as a catalyst for reviving economic growth and providing young people in particular with the skills that they need now to make an immediate impact on the world of work. You can now claim your incentive payments via your apprenticeship service account. As soon as you have a contract of employment and apprenticeship agreement in place, you will be eligible. The money is paid in instalments, with 50% paid at around 90 days and the remaining 50% paid roughly 365 days from the apprenticeship start date. This is of course subject to the apprentice still being employed with the same employer and undertaking their apprenticeship at these times. If your business does not already have an apprenticeship service account, you can register for one at our website www.gov.uk. And I'm now going to hand over to Subash, who's hopefully going to talk to you about T-levels.
Thanks, Ben. Subash, if you are here, you just need to turn on your microphone and your camera. He's not currently on stage, Ben, so potentially we might have to go straight through over to Karen.
Well, actually, I don't, excuse me, sorry, I think we're just having see there's a bit of a technical hitches. I don't mind very quickly covering for CBASH, because I've done this presentation before, but some of you have heard about T-levels. They are 2-year qualifications to 16 to 19-year-olds. The most important part of it is the 45-day industry placement, which is at the heart of the course. So it's kind of the flip side to apprenticeships, where with apprenticeship it's 80% on the job and 20% off the job. With T-levels, it's the other way round. 20% is off the job, and the 80% is actually in the classroom. We're delighted that earlier this month we launched the first 3 T-levels. I won't, obviously you'll get a copy of these slides, so you'll be able to read through them. We'll also be able to share with you a clip from our Minister for Apprenticeship and Skills, which is Gillian Keegan, and I can allude that the government are fully supportive of T-levels, and the idea is to start quite small. We don't expect any more than about 2,000 in the first year, and over the next few years they'll grow. If we could go on to our next slide, please, Ben. Hello, Angelique. So, as I said, we've launched the first 3. There'll be 24 T-levels starting between September 2020 and September 2023. The most important part and the message we're trying to give employers is you don't have to offer placements in your core business. You can look at specific skills gaps and offer a placement in any part of the business where there's an opportunity. So what we can't ignore is there's a significant shift in all our world since March. Each of us are grappling with short-term challenges and yet have an eye to the possibilities that are ahead of us. That includes the critical role employers and further education sector will play in building substantial organisations with the talent we need to be successful. And we need our young people to be part of that journey. And T-levels is one of the ways that we can give young people that opportunity. You'll see on the screen there is an email address that you can contact, but actually in our call to action we will be sharing links, hyperlinks to further information for you to get more involved with T-levels or understand them. But the most important place is that high quality industry placement that employers can offer to young people. If we could go on to my next slide. So now we move on to traineeships. Traineeships is a flexible education and training program for 16 to 24-year-olds, up to 25 for those with an education, health and care plan. Work preparation training includes help with English and maths, and the emphasis is on a high quality placement. There have been some changes, and young people who now have a level 3 are eligible for the program. It's important to point out that the employer incentive of £1,000 per trainee was those taken on from September this year to July 2021. In terms of the employer incentive, we will shortly be publishing details of how employers will be able to claim for this incentive on completion of their work placement later in the autumn. We have very recently this week launched the invitation to tender for 19 to 24 traineeships as part of our delivery of traineeship reforms and expansion programme. So watch this space. We could move on to the next slide, please. So now I'd like to cover the Redundancy Support Service for Apprentices. It brings together redundant apprentices and employers with job vacancies, and the employer incentive, which Ben talked about earlier, would apply in these cases. You'll recognise some of the logos of the employers sharing their vacancies. I think Amazon has particularly done well in the lockdown period. But the access to the service can be done online or via the telephone. And as I said earlier, the presentation will be shared. So you'll be able to click through to all the hyperlinks for further information. If we can go on to our next slide, please. Really pleased to share with you that we have over 300 employer offers. Many of these have multiple opportunities in multiple sectors and locations. One of our fantastic good news stories is by Troop Bywaters and Anders, who have taken on 3 redundant apprentices. My next slide. So here we're about to share it is a quote from Neil Weller from Troop Bywaters and Anders, and I'm just going to give you a moment to read this quote. I'm sure, like me, it certainly made me think about all the people that have helped me over the years. But more importantly, it shows the positive impact employers can make by simply sharing vacancies on the service. So I hope you've found this information useful. I'm now going to hand back to Ben.
Thanks, Karen, and thanks for filling in for Subhash there. Levy transfers next. You may be aware that levy-paying employers can transfer up to 25% of their funds to other employers. This can allow other organisations to fully fund the cost of an apprenticeship training and to help them to grow their business. Over 55% of apprenticeship starts are from levy-paying organisations. However, some levy-paying employers are looking to share their funds with businesses in the local community, supply chain companies and charities. All of this to support the growth of apprenticeships and the country's economy. You can find guidance on this at our website that includes what transferred funds can be used for and how to start a transfer. So the final slides here, as Karen alluded to earlier, just include some links to further information and support. When you get these slides, obviously you'll be able to refer back to them and click through some of the links. We've got information on apprenticeships, Kickstart, T-levels, and traineeships. So that actually concludes our presentation today. I'm sorry Subhash was unable to join us, but if we've got time now, we can have a look if there are any questions. I'm just going to stop sharing the slideshow here.
Thanks, Ben.
Ben, it's Subhash here.
Oh, Subhash.
Hi, my sincere apologies. I lost connection, so I had to reconnect again. So my apologies that it happened at the wrong time. Sorry about that. So I'm back on.
Thanks, Subhash. Ben, just going into the Q&A then, and you know, whichever of your colleagues might answer. But first question's from Keith. How do Kickstart, Gateways and DWP locally ensure that we're taking advantage of the publicity around Kickstart to organise pathways to apprenticeships?
Kickstart, Gateways. Taking advantage. Sorry, just reading through that question again. The thing with Kickstart is it's a DWP initiative, and I know that we've got Dave on shortly from DWP to take questions on Kickstart. So we at the DFE we have to be careful what we're saying there. So sorry, no, the question's just moved.
Well, the next question that's come up there is, or it's maybe an observation. Well, it is a question. If employers use transferred funds, they will not be able to access the apprenticeship incentives. Will this be addressed and changed?
If they use transferred funds, they won't be able to access the incentives. Subhash,
No, they can. No, they can. They can. As long as the apprentice is new, recruited as a new person to the business, they will be able to access the incentives, which the government recently announced, even with transfer of levy funds.
Okay, thanks, Subhash.
thanks. Yeah.
The next question, looking through the list there, are we certain that the government is going to? I mean, this is you speaking for the government now, Ben. That's an answer. Yeah. Are we certain, especially at the moment? Are we certain the government is going to keep the apprenticeship levy as is for the next year and not repackage it to support its plan for jobs or the national skills budget?
As far as we have been told at our level, it's going to stay, and we were assured whether there was any change in government even that it would remain and the levy would stay in place. There's no end date that we've been made aware of, and obviously the Chancellor spoke recently about the additional funding that's going into education and skills. So again, as far as I'm aware, there are no plans to end it, to divert budgets elsewhere, and in fact those other areas that are demanding funding are being funded through other methods. So.
Okay, thank you. There's no further questions there in the Q&A for you guys, but I suppose particularly Subhash, is there anything you'd like to add to what's been covered so far this afternoon, should I say?
No, I think Ben and Karen covered it in our presentation. Obviously, we've done a series of these presentations across the country. They have been very well received in terms of the offer from, the apprenticeships to T-levels and traineeships. And we've also got Kickstart, which is obviously a DWP initiative, but there has been quite a lot of interest in that. Some of the employers that I'm aware of, because I'm one of the account managers like Ben, have actually brought the recruitment forward because they want to benefit from the incentives, which obviously are available till 31st of January. So we are seeing a trend where people are recruiting, but obviously it's very industry specific as well. So certain industries are not doing so well, unfortunately, like the hospitality ones. So they are pretty much on hold, but there's other industries, for example, digital or the Amazons of this world, they are recruiting quite a lot of staff. So yeah, we've seen a shift in terms of the recruitment process.
Okay, thank you. There's one question just quickly come up from Jemima. I would like to ask how I connect with you, Ben, Karen, and Subhash, as it looks like Jemima's working on a T-level professional development program. So how might individual connect with you guys?
Yeah.
Ben's your primary contact.
Yeah, you can access me through Louise at the Southeast Let. So if you have her contact details, reach out to her, and she can put you in touch with me.
Thanks ever so much. Thanks to all three of you. Apologies for the technical issue, Subhash.
No, that's fine.
But thank you ever so much for your time this morning. And
Thanks, guys.
Connect with them.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
Goodbye. So without further ado, and we've mentioned Kickstart, obviously it's come up through the chat and through the Q&A, and there's no better time, therefore, to introduce Dave Cope from Department for Work and Pensions. Many of you will know Dave, but Dave's going to come up to the stage right now to talk about Kickstart. Over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. And Ben, if you just mute yourself as well, because we can still see your headshot there. Perfect. And if you just unmute, Dave, can you see the mic on option? You're just still on mute, Dave. If you just refresh your screen or turn off your camera and microphone and then turn them back on again.
While Dave's having the issue, I wonder whether perhaps Louise and Joe Simmons are able to come to the stage, and then we can get, hang on, we might be all right here. Dave, can you hear us? Say something, Dave. Dave, can you hear me? Dave, last check. Can you hear me? No. Dave, if you can hear me, I think what we'll try and do is we'll try and bring Louise and Joe up to the stage. So Louise is my boss, and a very good one at that. But Louise is skills lead for CELEP. Joe Simmons is business development lead for the LEP Region 2. And they're going to come up and talk about some upcoming business support and skills funding. So I'll hand over to the boss.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for the kind words. He has to say. No worries. We'll do our item so that Dave can get any technical issues sorted out. We might be in a position of gaining back some time. So thanks to everybody for sticking with us to this stage. I know you're probably all getting hungry by now. So myself and Joe are pleased to say a few words about our new COVID Recovery Fund. I'm Louise Aitken, as Jim has said, I'm CELEP Skills Lead. I'll hand over to Joe shortly to talk about our Business Support Fund, but a quick overview of the Skills Fund first from me. By way of background, this is funding that the LEP board agreed to in June by repurposing Growing Places funding. Chris set out earlier some of the challenges we're seeking to address through the funding that include our increased levels of employment that have obviously become pretty high for us recently. So following consultation and evidence gathering, in September, our board agreed to the focus for that £2 million pot as being a pathway to jobs in CELEP's growth sectors through retraining, supporting people into digital jobs across all sectors, and closing the digital divide by getting training kit and connectivity to those that need it. I think today has really helped highlight the need and opportunity in skills and the digital landscape across our geography. And I guess it's quite heartening to hear that what we're doing responds to some of the things we've been hearing about today. So we're hoping to start procurement this month with a framework that will consist of separate LEP-wide lots covering the focus areas I just talked through. And we'll have a further framework for innovative solutions to training barriers to include things like online learning, virtual learning, and supporting navigation of the skills landscape. And it's a really good opportunity, hopefully, for us to lead the way in some new areas of work. So all of the funding will have some overarching principles, such as delivery being LEP-wide, delivering within a year, because clearly this is critical that this gets up and running as soon as possible, and also not duplicating existing provision, such as the national programmes we've just heard about and we're going to hear about in a minute in terms of Kickstart. Procurement's going to take place by our Essex County Council, who are accountable body for the South East LEP, and we'll share information with you all as the procurement process gets up and running. What I'll do is in the chat, I'll post a link to our website, because the procurement will appear on our opportunities page on the South East LEP website, but I'll post a link in the chat to that shortly so that you know where to go, but we'll circulate that really widely. So I'll just hand over to Joe now to talk about the business support side of things.
Thanks, Lou. Hello, everyone. As Lou said, my name is Jo Simmons. I'm the Business Development Manager for the South East LEP, and I'll just give you a quick update on the Business Support Fund that is running concurrently, slightly behind the deployment of the Skills Fund that Lou is leading on. This is also Growing Places Fund, as Lou says. £2.4 million of which has been repurposed specifically for a business support fund to support small and medium-sized enterprises that have been directly impacted by the virus. And we've heard this morning, and we know that the impact of the lockdown on our business space, which is hugely, as was said earlier, in the region of 170,000 businesses, the impact has been profound. We undertook 2 business surveys since the lockdown started, and of those businesses that responded, 98% report being negatively affected by the pandemic, and 40% are either temporarily or indefinitely closed. And we engage with many of these affected businesses on a daily basis through our Growth Hub service, who provide the most immediate point of contact for advice and support and signposting of our businesses to support schemes that are relevant to them. So we know that there are numerous free and impartial schemes out there and available, operating nationally, regionally, locally, offering loans and grants and specialist advice. And typically a business will want to access more than one of these schemes so that they can get the breadth of help that they need. So in this context, and within the business support landscape as it currently stands, our Business Support Fund will contribute to this landscape by providing new and COVID relevant stepping stones for these businesses to access and continue their journey through their business support needs. So the number of enterprises seeking help at the moment is huge. We know this just by the volume of calls that our growth hubs are receiving. What they need is help to adapt their business models and their operations to accommodate the social distancing measures, home working, changing consumer demands. And they also report back through our surveys that they need digital infrastructure and technology to help them to do this. So what we're proposing is 3 programs of support from this fund: one to support pre-starts and startups, one to support the digitisation of businesses, and one to support the visitor economy, which we heard earlier from Joe. You know, we know that this is one of the hardest. These are some of the hardest hit sectors that we're seeing, and the last to return. And the programs that we are proposing will be a combination of bespoke advice, one-to-one and one-to-many business support, and associated small grants to help businesses do that innovation and that adaptation that they need to do. So in the process of filling some of these important gaps in the current landscape, we're also making sure that these new programs don't duplicate or displace what's already available, because those schemes are already numerous. This is a very busy and complicated space, but we're trying to seek to support as many people as possible. So as with the Skills Fund, we'll be looking to procure independent service providers for each of these 3 programs. We're slightly behind the deployment of the Skills Fund, so we'll be looking to go out to procure these in November so that we can start rolling out the support from December onwards. And again, the procurement opportunity will be via the Essex County Council e-sourcing portal, which Lou has offered to share the link to. Again, these programs will be delivered LEP-wide. It could be a single organisation delivering the programme, but we would also welcome consortiums of providers to come together to bid in to deliver each of these programmes, because we know that collaboration, that local knowledge and local expertise, local business networks are often key to success for these kind of support programmes. Finally, we're not expecting any match funding needed throughout the tender process. We know this is a limiting factor, and we're looking to get these programmes up and running as soon as is feasibly possible. So we'll be making further information about the Business Support Fund, also available on our website in the next few weeks. But in the meantime, I'd be happy for people to contact me directly and or through Lou, whose contact details go far and wide. So contact me directly in the meantime if you'd like to find out more. Thanks very much. I'll hand back now to Lou for her final words.
Thanks, Jo. And just hopefully what this shows you is how proactive we're being as a LEP to responding to recovery and really taking account of what the feedback is and what the evidence is showing us. So hopefully this is a really good opportunity for us to tackle the issues we're facing. And we hope they'll also serve as pilots for national application. We're sharing a lot of this with DFE and DCMS and other government departments. Just as I'm CELEP Skills Lead, I just wanted to add my own thanks to everybody as well for attending today, and to our chairs and speakers. I hope you've enjoyed the platform. I'm sorry to those that have had technical issues, but I hope you agree that it's a brilliant platform. We really like the opportunity it gives us to network. Huge thank you to Digital Leaders and to Louise for taking away a lot of the headaches and for hosting us and for all her support today. The room, I know we're going to hear from Dave shortly, but just to reiterate to you, the room will stay open for a little while when we finish. So feel free to continue using it and network with people at your virtual tables. A huge thank you to Jim Wilkinson in my team, who I've worked in partnership with on today's event, and as always has done an absolutely brilliant job and gone above and beyond, as he does with the Digital Skills Partnership. We're really pleased there are so many people with us here today and that we can share this through a recording. Also, thank you to Vimbai, Ellie and Zoe in the CELEP team for supporting so much of today as well, and helping us get the message out there. And not least the CELEP South East Skills website that will soon be launching. Hopefully, I think somewhere on here in the virtual room there's a visual of the new website to give you an idea of what it looks like, but it will go live very soon, and we hope it's going to be really useful for us to share the labour market information, courses and signposting that we receive and that we have to produce as being a skills advisory panel. but it's also a space for you to share your news, photos, services. So get in touch with me or Jim if you want to get involved. What today has shown me is that there is so much amazing stuff happening that we want to share via that website, so that becomes something for us all. And more than anything, to help us show what a fantastic proactive area the South East LEP is. And that's really thanks to all of you and all the people that have spoken today. So thank you. And later, I won't do it now because we're handing to Dave shortly, but Melissa from Visor, our Digital Skills Partnership co-chair, will say some closing words, but just thanks to her and Alison as well for all they do. So thank you.
Thanks ever so much, Louise and Joe, to both of you. And you know, before I go into tears about your thank you ever so much. But thanks ever so much to Louise, to the skills team at the LEP and the entire LEP team for getting today happening. Hopefully, because there's been a lot in the chat and Q&A about the Kickstart scheme, we might now be in a position to hand to Dave Cope, who will, perhaps without video, come up on stage and give us some words about the Kickstart scheme. Dave, are you there? I think you just want us to cause a lot of drama around you, don't you, Dave? Dave, if you can hear me, if you can come to the stage and try presenting without sharing any video. Okay. It's looking like this isn't going to happen. So what we'll do is we'll try and get this fixed. It obviously would be great to have some words about Kickstart. If we can't get Dave up on screen, we'll obviously share information from Dave after the event. So if Melissa is perhaps in the room, can Professor Hannah Brown come to the stage and close the event with a little more time than she perhaps expected? Melissa, are you there? It's gone so swimmingly and it's all going to go up in flames now in the last 5 minutes. Louise Stokes, is Melissa Hannah Brown there, or has Dave Cope returned?
Jim, I was just going to suggest it.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
I was just going to suggest that if we've got a few minutes, we could do a bit of table networking if people would like to try that out while we wait for Melissa and Dave to get back. Or are they joining us now?
Well, Dave's a big D.
Right, I am here. Can you hear me?
There he is. Dave, go for it.
Right, apologies, colleagues. As always, this worked absolutely fine yesterday. So I've got some local Wi-Fi network problems, which I suspect is the root of the problem, as I'm at home at the moment, like many of you. So hoping everyone can still hear me, because it appears to still be. So just take a few minutes to talk about Kickstart. I know there's been a lot of discussion about Kickstart today. I'll be as frank and as candid as I generally am at these sort of events. I've worked for DWP for a very long time. I've always been a little bit of a cynic about supported and subsidised employment programs. I think they've tended in the past to be a short-term fix to just fill a gap, and frankly been a little bit presentational and quite political. I think Kickstart is quite different, because Kickstart is, from a policy perspective in DWP, very much based on an expectation of progression. So we are looking at people moving on, and some of the comments in the chat have been really useful in that respect, in that we can see organisations brigade to offer will help people to move on. First and foremost for DWP, it is a job. So we in DWP are being very upfront about this internally and externally. It's not a program, it's not a training course for a job. And we want our people to treat it like a job, and we want our candidates to treat it like a job. And it will, the funding is quite generous. It does allow employers to effectively receive the equivalent of the wages they would have paid to a person for 25 hours a week. I have seen, just in the last few weeks since we did the soft launch, I have seen a phenomenal level of interest, and I have genuinely seen people coming forward looking to recruit who would not have been in a position to recruit otherwise. And that for me is the whole point. I think the program falls if it can't offer that, and I think it does. Now, It has, of course, like all things at the moment, been done quick and been done in response to a very difficult situation. So it's took a little while to work through some of the detail. But the key principles are, if you're an employer with 30 jobs or more, you can put those opportunities up now, and you can receive those subsidies fairly quickly in terms of the grant from DWP. If you've got less than 30 jobs, which of course most employers will have, because the majority of the economy is SMEs, then you can work through what was initially called an intermediary. It's now called a gateway organisation. So you can work through a gateway organisation which will help you to brigade together your jobs with other employers in order to access the subsidies and the grant available. Now, of course, the gateway organisations are responsible for quite a lot in terms of finance, governance, moving funds from across to employers. Therefore, they are subject to a certain amount of financial viability assessment and a certain amount of ongoing monitoring to ensure that they are in a position to deliver this and to continue to deliver it. And we are seeing gateway organisations being stood up across the country in very large numbers. You apply through Gov UK. We do the assessment, then we look at publicising the opportunities. And there was a question about publicity a minute ago, which I'm going to pick up. So the reality of that is that there is a potential gateway organisations in various parts of the country. I think there's room for them all, in truth, or a large number. And I think what's becoming quite obvious as we go along, that they are different offers in different places for different reasons. Again, I don't think that's a problem. So certainly we are keen for local authorities to play a part here and to either be a gateway organisation themselves or to brigade with other local authorities to offer the service. And we've potentially one leading, and we're seeing some of that across our patch. We're also perfectly happy and welcoming to other types of organisations to step forward and carry out this activity. So it's a mixed economy in the true sense. And of course, because of that, some of the gateway organisations are going to wrap around some support and ongoing support to people in the role, and potentially some training to help people to improve their skills levels and all the rest of it. Some gateway organisations will do it themselves to some extent, some will buy it in. That's an evolving picture. The funding that lands with the employer is intended to support the young person in work. As it stands, when we say young person, we are talking about 16 to 24 in receipt of universal credit. Now, the intention is that Kickstart is primarily for people in that bracket who are at risk of long-term receipt of universal credit. So that isn't necessarily the very, very job-ready people who are going to get a job tomorrow, nor is it probably people with multiple barriers and obstacles. But coming on to that, piece is really important, because from a policy perspective, what we are looking for is lots of people to move through Kickstart and into other things, including apprenticeships. There are some overlaps with funding and other initiatives, there absolutely are. And there's a lot of conversation going on in the policy space about how we get that to work. So we're not denying that there are what look to be some difficult and unfortunate overlaps around subsidies in particular. But the reality is that what we are really looking for is progression. And if people move from a Kickstart placement into an apprenticeship and stick with the employer for that apprenticeship, that's great. The reality is, of course, that if nothing else, is a 6-month work trial. It is an opportunity for a person to prove themselves in a role. And then what we hope will happen is that employers will recognise the value of those people and will keep them on. And of course, in the meantime, in that 6-month period, we'll use that time to help that person grow their business, because we want to bounce back. And, the truth is, I have been pretty overwhelmed by the level of interest in Kickstart. There will be thousands of opportunities. The Chancellor's expectation is that will be 10,000 starts per month from November onwards. We have some very big players on board. So we have Kickstart opportunities available right now with Tesco's. Tesco's are on a slightly faster track for various reasons. We'll have some other big employers coming on board in the next few days and weeks. And then, of course, alongside that, and equally, if not more importantly, we'll have a lot of opportunities from SMEs and smaller parts of the economy bringing their stuff forward through Gateway organisations. So we expect to hit the ground running. We have this week in DWP in Essex. Those opportunities went live with Tesco's this week. We've already referred young people for those opportunities. My work coaches are absolutely chomping at the bit to get more volume in, to get more opportunities in, to have an opportunity to refer young people to genuine job opportunities. Is exciting for us because, like I say, these are jobs. We also have a whole raft of other provision, which I don't have time to talk about today, more and more of which is coming on stream over the next few weeks. The government has invested a phenomenal amount of money in DWP to give us the tools to do the job and get the economy back up and running. So Kickstart is integral to that. Now, many of us, I suspect many of you are also providers. There's a part to play. Certainly Gateway organisations, for example, will use Kickstart to employ people themselves, including local authorities. All well and good, absolutely great. Some will employ people to help them to manage the Kickstart scheme, help them to manage the expansion of the businesses that they're working with. All that stuff will be absolutely fine. You know, the bottom line is what we want these jobs to be is additional value to the economy. Now, there are, of course, cynics in DWP, and there are quite a few, and, you know, who would say, how do we stop employers taking advantage of this, taking people on for 6 months and then just discarding them and getting somebody else and getting another subsidy? Yeah, it's a risk, but I'm not feeling it. I'm not seeing it. Though, to be honest, we've had lots of initial conversations with employers over the last few weeks. Certainly in the London and Essex, which is my patch, you're talking thousands of conversations. Very few conversations are going down that road. The vast majority of people are seeing this for what it is, are signing up for it for the right reasons. Those who don't, we will weed out. And as I say, there will be. And bottom line, you know, my work coaches do hold the ring on this a little bit, and they will want to refer people to employers they trust, vacancies and opportunities they think are genuine and meaningful, because they will want those customers to succeed. You know, they will not put customers in a position where they don't. Now, the gateways will have some responsibility for monitoring the quality of what's delivered and what the employer is doing, and are people being treated in the right way and all that kind of stuff. But believe me, I have significantly less concern about this than I have in other similar situations in the past. So that's a quick cant through it from a policy perspective. Some of the detail is still a little not there, for want of a better phrase, i.e. there is some work still to do in terms of the mechanics, the logistics, the governance around the money, how we move the money, what systems we use, all that kind of stuff. That is very much in the process of being signed off by our PermSec pretty much as we speak. So things are moving quite quickly. There are still quite a lot of unanswered questions. I haven't told you anything that isn't on GovUK, and there is a lot. GovUK has a whole section on Kickstart, which is accessible to employers, and there'll be lots of answers there. Any answers you can't find, more than happy for people to come through to me. Happy if we wanted to share the participation details for this event. If people wanted to pick up a separate event stroke meeting around Kickstart with myself and some of my team, that would be absolutely fine. So I'll leave it there because things keep popping up on my screen telling me the event is about to finish.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks ever so much for what is always an honest assessment. So thank you. In terms of questions, well, as Dave says, feel free to pick that up with Dave or his compatriots across the region separately. For now, thanks, Dave. But for now, I'm going to hand over to close the event to Professor Hannah Brown, who's the co-chair of the Digital Skills Partnership. Thank you ever so much to everyone that's come along today. And over to you, Melissa.
Hi, can you hear me okay? I'm hoping so.
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. Okay. I've just had a panic for a couple of minutes thinking I couldn't get it through. So yeah, just as Jim said, my name's Melissa Hannah Brown, and along with Alison Palmer, we co-chair the Digital Skills Partnership for CLIP. It's really been fantastic to be a part of this today. I've certainly been privileged and very inspired actually by you know, the talks that people have given, but also by hearing about, you know, the coherence that we're all striving for and the connectivity that we're hoping to establish and already establishing in some places across our very large region, and one that has also very diverse sectors. So really, I'd like to say, you know, on behalf of the Digital Skills Partnership, thank you very much for interacting throughout the meeting. That, you know, the busy traffic in the chat and during the networking breaks has certainly shown me that the skills area across our sectors in the Southeast are incredibly important. And, you know, our productivity as a region, at the end of the day, very much relies on people and the skills that they can bring to the workplace. And we've heard over and over and over again today that COVID has really shone a light on the need for digital skills. And especially on the digital poverty in many areas, and just that inequity across many sectors and areas in our region. For me, I work for Pfizer in the area of medicines development. So I work in the bit of the life cycle, if you like, in pharmaceuticals, where the discovery of a new potential medicine has already happened. And I work with the, you know, interdisciplinary scientists and engineers who have to work on making that medicine into something that is safe for patients. And certainly COVID has also shone a light on the complexity of all of that. And if you didn't previously appreciate development of medicines and how long that takes and all of the complexity involved and the safety aspects, if you didn't know that before the COVID, I'm sure that you know something about it now. And for that reason, I just want to mention as part of the closing a project that is going on in the Southeast. And Louise, if you wouldn't mind just putting the slide up so people can see that one slide, that'd be great. It's an internationally leading project that's going to Innovate UK. It's in the second stage, Strength in Places project. It's supported by CLEP. And multiple partners in Kent and Medway, and some in the wider Southeast as well. And it's to open a new digital innovation and skills studio that will be based in Discovery Park in Sandwich. Debbie said earlier, and you know, I thought that was fantastic, how she told us about, you know, getting out of our silos and sharing in the digital space. And this is exactly what we want to do in this studio. So the innovation focus of the studio is about transforming and ultimately speeding up the design life cycle for medicines through to manufacturing and patients, and doing that using digital tools and technologies like digital twin technology that aerospace and automotive industries use. But the project also, to enable that, has to have a strong skills platform, and we need to be able to, you know, use cutting edge technology in this studio space, and internationally leading experts who are going to be employed there to benefit the STEM and community outreach programs that perhaps are already going on, but looking to transform those through to SMEs and education and training providers and larger corporates. So the space and technology, you know, in the studio will be accessible in person, but also virtually. And we'd be very interested to hear from any, you know, SMEs in the Digitech or Digi-Life Science space, or any education and training providers, and perhaps other large businesses already using digital twins, so that we could see whether there might be any mutual benefit in partnerships. So that was just a little call for that one. And if you are interested in hearing more about the project more widely, please do contact Jim and he can help direct you to the right people in the project. So finally, in closing, really, I want to say thank you very much to the Skills Advisory Panel that we heard from earlier, the Digital Skills Partnership. Louise has already said thank you to lots of people, but thank you very much to Louise. And also to, of course, to co-chair Alison Palmer, and very much to Jim, and to the fantastic tech support from Louise Stokes. To everybody who's attended and still on the line now, thank you again for your engagement. The attendee packs, as you've heard, hopefully are going to be shared. That will include the recordings and Q&As. And I think the final agenda is going to close, but I believe the floor will probably be open for a few minutes for networking. So thank you very much. And we look forward to you engaging with the different groups that you've heard from today. Please get involved so that we can really change the landscape with digital skills in the Southeast.
Have a wonderful rest of the day, everyone. Thank you ever so much, Melissa, for your time today, for joining us and being part of the partnership. All the best and have a good afternoon, everyone.